So with the cabinet basically done, I'm making the adjustable shelves. Nothing too fancy here. I'm just using some leftover 1/2-inch plywood from the rear panel, and I put a little bit of glue on the top, and I'm just making up a 1.5 inch wide face, 3/4 by 1.5 inch, and I'm just gonna tack this on here. Leave just a paper's thickness to be trimmed off here later. So look like that, and I'll trim this up the top side so it's going to sit like this, and I'm going to clamp all 4 of these up. So this is how I make the majority of my bases. It's just a block of 3/4 inch thick wood, solid wood, and it's 8 inches long, and this one's 5.5 inches deep. Don't have to get too crazy about the measurements on that. I router the edges so that you don't stub your toe on them and all that kind of stuff, and I router up. I just leave this corner. Actually, I run my router up as far as the edge of the router will go, so I don't know what that distance is. It doesn't really matter. I've made my measurement. This is 1 inch in from each side, and I'm just going to drill a 5/8 inch hole most of the way through, not all the way. Something like that, and that will receive this plate eventually that's going to sit down in here, and we'll screw that in. You want to pre-drill those holes before you run your screws in. Then what I do is just run some holes just so I can fasten it to the floor, whether it's a wood floor or concrete. And I'll countersink those just so the nail or the screw sits in there nice and flush. And I'll sand that all down and paint it, and there's your base. I'm going to make the header for this single panel outswing door. With the in-swing doors, you don't have to worry about a header. This plate will just mount directly up to the underside of the jamb, and it's exposed on the back side, no big deal. However, with the outswing doors, you would see that, and you don't want to. So I take a 3/4 inch piece of plywood, and I've just made up some pieces so I can wrap the front and the 2 sides with 1-by, just so it'll look nice when it's done. So all I'm going to do is glue those on and tack them on. Make sure if you're going to tack it, you can also clamp it, and you won't have to worry about this, but if you're going to tack it, make sure you understand where your hole's going to be, because your plate is going to sit something like this, and you don't want a nail going through there. I know somebody who's ruined a whole bunch of Forstner bits not paying attention to that. I won't name any names, but header all wrapped here, and I routed out. Actually, the first one I did was I drilled a 1/2 inch hole at where my pivot point's going to be, and then laid this plate on there and routed that out, so this will sit down in there like so. So when it's up, all you'll see, you won't see the plate, you'll just see the wood. And then what I'm going to do is wrap this with a nice crown. Ran out of poplar, so I'm using up a little cherry that I had left over. It's all going to get painted. And then your returns, this base needs to be 4 inches out from the drywall. So in this case, this is going back 4 inches, but if I'm going to have a piece of trim on there, let's say it's 3/4 of an inch thick, then my return is only going to be 3.5 inches. Because again, I want the face of this to be out from the drywall 4 inches, and that'll allow the door to open and clear anything up to 3/4 of an inch thick, and still be able to open 180 degrees. So we'll get that done, and I'll show you what it looks like. So there's the header, mostly done. Last thing that I did was I made up just a little block, and it's going to go, this is the pivot side over here, of course, so as the door closes, I'm going to attach this to the back side here, and as the door closes, it's going to bump up against here. This is what I'm going to either attach my magnetic catch to, or the latch for the book latch mechanism. So we'll get that on there, and
So I've got the header done, and there's the little block I was telling you about. So when I'm ready to install the door, of course I'll have the plate in here. I don't put that in until it's all painted up. And then I'll install the header first into the underside of the door jamb, set the case on the base, and move the whole thing underneath this header, which is already in place. And then I'll drop a pin down through that hole, through the plate, into the top of the door, and move the base around until I get it plumb and where I want it to be, lag the base in. Install my adjustable shelves. I've got 4 of these made up, so 2 above and 2 below. Of course they're adjustable with 1/4-inch pins. And that's a single panel, that's a basic case for a single panel door.